You saw me load 45 ACP with the Lee Pro 4000. How is this press going to do with rifle ammunition? We're going to put it to the test in this video with 6.5 Grendel. Gavin here from UltimateReloader.com. The Lee Pro 4000 is a kit. It includes the Lee Auto Breech Lock Pro 4-station progressive reloading press, and then all the parts and pieces that you're going to need to load a particular caliber of ammunition. In the first video, we covered the kind of overview, unboxing the press, getting it set up, getting it mounted, getting it set up to load 45 ACP, and loading that ammunition. In this video, I'm going to cover the rest of the story, which is the caliber changeover. We're going to swap out the shell plate. We're going to swap out primers, large to small, because 6.5 Grendel is small primers. We're going to use the safety prime this time. We're going to swap out our dies. We're going to cover all of the steps that are required to do the most complicated caliber changeover, pistol to rifle with a primer change. So I'm going to break this down into multiple sets of different steps and activities, and we'll cover them sort of chunk by chunk. Before I get into the caliber changeover process, I wanted to cover what's required in terms of parts and pieces and components, some of which come with the Pro 4000 press kit, some of which you're going to need to purchase separately. So from the kit, we're going to use the riser block for the case inserter on the case feed system. We're going to use the rifle drum insert for the auto drum powder measure. And then for the priming system, we're going to swap out the primer rocker from large to small. This time we're going to add the safety prime system I did not show in the 45 ACP video. And in addition to the rocker, we're going to also need the flip tray, and we're going to need the swinger arm. Now on the swinger, on the button that you press, there's an S on this one. The press also comes with the L version and 2 flip trays. I've already got the rocker for large in the press. That just drops in, and we've got the small one here. That should pretty much take care of the component swap outs from what comes with the Pro 4000 kit. Now in terms of what we need to buy, if we don't have the appropriate shell plate, the shell plate is specific to case rim dimensions. So if you have the appropriate shell plate for 308 Winchester, for instance, you're going to be able to reuse that for things like 6mm Creedmoor, 6.5 Creedmoor, 243 Winchester, all of those common case rim cartridges. Here I have the number 12 Auto Breech Lock Pro shell plate, which is going to work for 6.5 Grendel, 6 ARC. It would work for 7.62 by 39, and so on and so forth. And of course, we need a die set. This is the Pace Setter die set, the latest version from Lee. We've got the instructions. We've got a packet, sample packet of case lube. There's a dipper that you can use to measure powder charges. It comes with a shell holder that we would use if we were using a single stage press or a turret. And then we've got the dies themselves. We will get into each of those dies and have a brief overview of how those are set up when I go through that part of the caliber changeover process. So I'm going to get busy, I'm going to get down and dirty, and then I'll cover this phase by phase. I just completed the first phase, which is tear down. I started at station number 2 with the powder measure. I've got the breech lock bushings here with this Auto Breech Lock Pro press, and that makes it very easy to do a partial rotation. Lift out the powder measure or other die. In this case, we've got the new powder measure with the cup design. So I inverted the powder measure, unscrewed the cup, and dumped the powder into the canister, and then set the powder measure aside on this cool wood block that I made with holes on the top for dies. I drilled a new hole for the case feed system here, keeps everything neat and tidy and out of the way. I then removed the other dies and the lock ring eliminator. This was an empty station. It's station number 4. And when you remove that bushing from station number 4, you'll see the top of the indexing rod. That'll allow you to lift the indexing rod out. Then we can focus our attention on the shell plate. So we've got these case retention arms here at stations number 2, 3, and 4. So I rotated those out of place. I pried off the ejector plastic piece. You're going to just pry that off with a flat blade screwdriver. And then I took the included Allen key that's included with the press and did a counterclockwise rotation until I could lift off the shell plate. It's just that easy. There's only one additional thing to do, and that's to lift out the rocker. So now that I've torn down the press, I'm going to go through the various steps to build it back up to load 6.5 Grendel, and that's what we'll talk about next. I decided to split the setup for 6.5 Grendel into sort of two phases, up until the point of getting case feed installed and then with case feed completely configured and ready to go. And here I am at the end of that first phase. The press is ready to roll minus case feed. And to give you a quick breakdown of what was involved, I installed the shell plate, you put it in place, tighten that center bolt while holding the shell plate, otherwise it'll spin and the threads won't engage. I installed the ejector plastic piece, dropped in the primer rocker, and then transitioned my attention to the die stations. I dropped in lock ring eliminator bushings and started with the sizer die. Raised the ram to the top of the stroke, cranked the sizer die down until it touched the shell plate, plus a little bit more, and then locked in the lock ring. Once we get to the point where we're putting cartridges through the press, we check our shoulder setback and our overall sizing with a case gauge and potentially other tools as well. Then I screwed in the powder charge die. This was another thing that I needed that I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video. The way the press was configured was with a powder through expander that expands the case mouth for 45 ACP. We do not need that for rifle, so we have a rifle charge die. This is just called the short charging die. It works with cases up to 1.760 inches. So I screwed that in, screwed the powder measure onto the powder charge die, and then kept incrementally screwing it in until I saw the drum do a full rotation when the ram was at the top of the stroke. I actually destroyed a case or two because I had it too far. That's when you know that you need to back things off just a little bit. I did take a look at the drum. It turns out I was using a large drum, a rifle drum, so I actually didn't have to swap that out, but I did check it. Loaded up with our powder. I'm using 8208 XBR from IMR. This is kind of the gold standard for 6.5 Grendel. So I thought I would take some of my old load data and load up some ammunition for the Unitop Precision Upper 15 and for the CMMG Resolute midsize that I have, both of those in 6.5 Grendel. So I picked a load that I thought was going to work good potentially in both of those. Confirmed my powder charge. I was way down. I started at 6 grains, had to go up to about 25.9. So I inserted the little key, backed it out, and then made sure that I had a steady powder charge. I was seeing within plus or minus 0.2 total variations. So that's going to work great for this particular load. That means the powder charging station is completely set up. Then I focused my attention on the bullet seating die. I put a completed cartridge in station number 3. This is from a previous loading session. And this ammunition was what I used to dial that die in. So I put the cartridge in station number 3, ran the ram to the top of the stroke, cranked the die in until I could feel it touch the shell casing. I'd previously backed off the seating plug and then ran the seating plug down until it made contact. I checked my cartridge overall length and I was just a little bit long, so I turned it down a little bit more, got to 2.260 thereabouts, wanted to make sure I was at magazine length for the AR-15 platform, and then proceeded to just validate that that was going to consistently seat at that depth. So at this point, we're ready to put a test cartridge through the press just to make sure everything's dialed in. Then we'll install the case feeder and go on to full progressive loading. So I've got a single shell casing here. I've applied some Imperial case sizing wax. This is kind of for one-off lube. For our bulk loading session, I'm thinking to use some of the spray-on lanolin type lube. Okay, so we're gonna insert the shell casing into the case inserter. We're gonna size, and every time we're at the top of the stroke, we need to rock the safety prime forward and push the button. You can see here that there's a primer. Show that to you there. So there's our new primer. That's good. Okay, we can see the drum rotate there. Take a look at the powder charge. That looks good. And again, I made sure that we ran up consistently. Okay, one more time in the empty station. That's that shell casing there. I'm going to check our cartridge overall length, which was 2.255, so we're within 5 thousandths. That 2.260 gives us a little bit of headroom. That's a good confirmation that we're on the right track with our press setup. So next I'm going to install the case feeder, then that full progressive load. The changeover for the case feed system involved a few things. First, I took the entire upper portion of the case feeder off. That's these drop tubes and the output ports off. Got it on the bench so that I could move the main bolt from its first position, which I was using in the last video, to the second position. And this swaps which output ports are being used. There's a larger diameter port, which I was using for 45 ACP, and a smaller diameter port with a larger extension on the bottom, which works well for cartridges like 6.5 Grendel. When you're using the small port, you have to plug up the top port, otherwise cases will fall right out. Very simple matter to do this conversion, and all of those parts were included with the Pro 4000 kit. Then I had to install the riser on the case inserter because we've got a taller cartridge that we're working with. There's a single screw that clamps that in place, really no big deal. Then it's getting the height set. So the entire upper portion goes back down on the press. You put a case right where the inserter is going to pick it up, and you put a coin on top of that to use as a spacer. That's going to set the air gap. Lower the entire upper half until that output port contacts the coin, and then bring the two nuts together to preserve that particular setting and tighten them. It's a very simple case feeder to convert over, and this thing has been working reliably since I got this switchover completed. And now we're ready to load some progressive ammo. So when things get going full progressive with 6.5 Grendel here, with the case feed system, with safety prime, here's kind of the rhythm that I'm looking for. I pull the handle, at the top of the stroke I activate safety prime, and then at the bottom of the stroke I place a bullet. Of course, that's once all of the stations are run up. So let's go ahead and do this. We've got brass in the press. Once that's the case, we're going to push forward on safety prime, and then at the bottom of the stroke we can feel the priming take place. We don't have anything in station number 3 yet, so we don't have to place a bullet yet. Takes a very light touch on the safety prime. Okay, so now we've got a cartridge in station number 3, place a bullet, safety prime. Okay. And now we've got all of the stations run up. Of course, I will increase my speed once I get the rhythm down. And the other thing that I'm keeping an eye on is cases. And when we feed our last case, then it's time to rotate the tube, which will drop a fresh set of cases down into position. And we've run through our first set of cases. Well, it looks like I'm ready to go shoot some 6.5 Grendel, which is going to be a lot of fun. And after using the Pro 4000 for both pistol and for rifle, I think there's some things about this press you're probably going to appreciate. And the first is the price tag. This is a very, very affordable kit. I'll have, if you click on that first link in the video description, some links over to Mid-South where you can see current street pricing on this stuff. And then the lack of complexity and the simplicity of the caliber change. It's really easy to get to the shell plate. The priming system is about as simple as you can get. And the breech lock bushings make it very simple to empty the powder measure, to swap out dies, anything like that. I'll also note that if you remove the indexing rod, you can use this basically like a single stage press, which is a nice thing as well. Here's what I want to know is, what do you think about the Auto Breech Lock Pro and the Pro 4000 kit? Please drop a comment and we'll start a discussion. Also, make sure you're subscribed with notifications because I've got more Lee content coming up and I've got more Progressive Press content coming up as well. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And again, don't forget those links down in the video description. I'm on Patreon. I got Ultimate Reloader shirts at the Ultimate Reloader store, and we got that full article. Thank you for watching. Until next time, happy shooting and happy reloading.